guys. If you've ever wanted to know anything about aviation, then this channel, the Airspace Exchange, is the channel for you. My name is Terry Chaplin, and I've been in the aviation industry for some 5 decades. The aim of this channel is to share all sorts of information with people who are interested in aviation in any form. This episode is part of a series on aviation careers, and it focuses on various careers that one can follow within the aviation environment. I trust that you will find it interesting and informative. Hello, Tosh. Thanks so much for coming to join us today on this video.
Morning, Terry.
Tell us a bit about firefighting and the career of a firefighting helicopter pilot.
Yeah, Terry, again, thanks for the earlier compliments in that. I've been doing fire since 1992 is my first job. I was employed as a spotter pilot up in Nelspruit, and I've been coming from a forestry background. I qualified as a forester at the end of 91, and I had my commercial license by then. So that was one of the incentives for getting involved in firefighting. I've done it not continuously since then, but for a number of years, and then from 2002, so when I started doing it with the helicopters, and also flew a bit of the bombers, the fixed wing bombers. Not that amount of time, I enjoyed the helicopters more. So from 2002 to the present day, on and off, and up until now, I've done probably a little over 1,000 hours of actual firefighting on helicopters. I'm guessing, well, it's definitely more than 10,000 loads with the bucket, with flown 407s, long ranges, the Hueys, and now eventually the Black Hawk. So I've done it for a number of years and had lots of excitement, and hopefully I can share some of those insights with you. Maybe it'll help somebody.
Gosh, that's an incredible amount of experience that you've got, and I know there are a lot of blokes out there that would like to know more about it. So you've flown airlines and you flew spotters and fixed wing airplanes as well. Why do you do firefighting? What makes it worth you coming to do this job as opposed to any other job? What motivates you?
Terry, that's the $1 million question. Truthfully, it has to be, and this is just my opinion, what I've experienced over the years, it has to be some of the most exciting and rewarding flying that I've ever done. And it still is. Having flown, as you said, I flew airlines for more than 20 years. I've flown big airplanes, small airplanes, all kinds of funny things. I've done EMS work. I've done even a lot of game capture with the rhinos. I moved lots of them over the years, slinging them with the helicopters. In fact, even with the Hawk, we've moved a couple of rhino in Botswana as well as this country. And that kind of work where you using the helicopter as a tool. And I think one of the biggest things I see, especially down here in the Cape as opposed to up north, is the gratitude from the people on the ground that you're helping. And I think I speak for many of the guys that do this. It sounds a bit cliched about the passion, but without a passion, you're not going to do this. And many people have actually asked me, why do I still do this? In the days we were still flying for the airlines. And if I look back now, I kind of struggle to give them an answer that kind of made sense. I did it because I wanted to, and secondly, because it was a hell of a lot of fun. It was exciting flying, and it tests you to your limits. Some days you never really get easy fires, but you get some days with it easier than others. But some days you've got to be on your A game. It becomes the risks are immense. Not to say the odds are against you, but you're going out there trying to help people. Fire it's a common enemy. Everyone's trying to get the fire out, and using your wits and your skills and whatever other things you can muster to put the fire out. That's the job that we do.
So Tosh, you mentioned some of the threats. There is another series on this channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is about safety and how you mitigate threats, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you'll talk to us a bit about the threats in firefighting and what you guys do about that. So guys, please keep an eye out for that. There's some very interesting stuff on the actual firefight. Coming back to our current thing, are there any parts of firefighting career or job that you don't enjoy?
Yeah, I guess the one that sticks out the most is the days spent on standby when you're stuck at the airport. And I liken it to being in a jail without any bars. You can't go to town, you can't do anything. So that just comes. It comes with a job. You've got to be on standby. That if somebody calls, you can dispatch within as quick a time as possible. Typically it'll be under 10 minutes with a Hawk. We'll be airborne on our way to the fire. So the quicker we can respond to emergencies, the quicker we can, hopefully resolve them. So that's one of the downsides. The other thing you could possibly look at for a person who's new to this, it's not a place I would say do you want to come build hours. You might only fly 30, 40 hours for a whole season. But then again, you might have a busy season and fly 100, perhaps even more, which for a year's flying is not a lot in terms of trying to build your career. And unfortunately, you don't want to have too many fires, but you need to have enough experience that when you go out to the fire, you can come off the couch being half asleep, jump in the helicopter, and now you've got to be, running at 100%, paying attention to what's out there, because each fire is different. It's never the same.
Would it make a big difference if it took you 10 minutes longer to get to the fire? So 20 instead of 10 to get in?
For the operation of the helicopter, not really, but for the people at the receiving end, the quicker we can get there, the quicker we can respond. You could almost term it as first responders. I mean, when there's a fire, it's a combination of the aerial attack as well as the ground teams. We're not the only solution. It works in conjunction with the ground team. So we can definitely subdue the fire, but you need the ground teams to really extinguish it or contain it, is one of the terms they use. In other words, it's under control.
Yeah. So once again, there's another video that we're doing together with you, where you're going to talk about how the firefighting actually takes place, where you'll elaborate on those aspects, I hope.
Yeah.
So that anyone watching would understand what you mean by the ground forces and the airborne forces. You mentioned, when we were talking previously, that I think it was somewhere around 18 months ago, you ended up doing a fire in the Franschhoek Valley out here near Cape Town, where I think you said you did 3 hours of flying and 153 buckets. So is that correct? Do I have those numbers right?
Yeah, Terry, we've done numerous fires, as you can imagine. And it's not about trying to set records, but we've had some days when you doing the accounting at the end, doing the logbook for the aircraft, and you look at the things and you think, wow, that's quite a lot of loads. In fact, I think the most I've done in one day was well over 200 loads in one day. That was a sugar factory up in the Lowveld that caught alight, and it wasn't a forest fire. But in general, if you're out for a long day, and it all depends how far away the water is, you can turn this thing around in a couple of minutes, from drop to drop. So we work on an average of about 18 loads an hour. That's a fair average. That includes the ferry time there and back. But if the water's close, you can get easy 25 to 30 loads an hour, load every 2 minutes.
So you go from watching a movie on your iPad, and 10 minutes later you're airborne and you're doing that level of concentrated, high-level work. And I think that's one of the things we'll be talking about as well in the vet and error and the safety management aspects of the job. Tosh, just to sort of put it into context, can you run us through a typical week at a firefighting station in the fire season? So a week, and how that translates to what you would be doing per day during that.
Okay, sure. I'll use Stellenbosch as the example because that's where we are at the moment. Today's actually a good example where we have an ongoing fire at the moment up near Wellington. It's still out of control. It's not contained. It's up in the mountains. It's all over the place. The weather conditions are such that potentially that fire, it probably is going to get going again once the wind gets up, because sometimes the wind blows in the Cape. It's a big surprise for many people, which I find quite strange. But the typical day will be for us, we on duty from 10 o'clock in the morning. So we'll typically arrive here between 9:15, 9:30. We'll sign in, make sure the equipment is all good for the day. We'll do a pre-flight in the helicopter, do the walk around.
That's why this bucket's in here ready to go.
That's correct. We've checked it. We have the chemical bag. We have make sure that the aircraft is fine, and this is part of our equipment. So we check this, and we'll check in with the crew for the day. We have ground teams that come, private firefighting guys. They're also stationed here. They come in during the weekdays, and we have the volunteers, VWS, the volunteer wildfire services. They come in on a weekend. So depending on who goes out first, whether it's the Hawk or the Hueys, they'll often take a ground team with us to assist the people on the ground. And they may even stay out for the night or come back with us at the end of the day. So we will be on standby, awaiting a dispatch call to go to the fire. So it may not be to that fire, it may be to a different place, maybe across to Cape Town. We've been, we work on probably about 150 kilometer radius around the Cape Town area, depending who's going to call us. So between the Cape Nature or Winelands Fire Protection Association or the City of Cape Town, it depends. the wind can blow here. So when the conditions that we have now, towards the end of the summertime, it's hot, it's dry. They haven't had any rain for I think a couple of weeks now. So the index, the fire danger index, is high. It's up into the orange. What it means is, should a fire start, the rate of spread is a lot greater than it would be if it was a cold day and overcast and raining. It's kind of self-explanatory. So, but with existing fires that are on the go, we're aware of it, and we're ready to go at a moment's notice. So that is the typical day. So we'll just hang around here waiting for the call. And if nothing happens, then come 6 o'clock in the evening, we'll pack it all up and we'll go home. We have had calls after 6 in the evening, in which case, if we can respond, we'll come back and we'll go out, especially the December, January, when the daylight only goes to about 9 o'clock. We can fly. In fact, with a Hawk, we can do firefighting until last light, official last light, and then we just position back in the evening. It's a twin-engine helicopter, so we got no problem with that, which allows us to be out there for a bit longer, to help people, because when the big fires come, they burn right through the night. So we have a situation where we'll normally get a heads up or a notice that the next morning we're going to go out at first light. So you'll get an early evening and be prepared next morning, be out here first light. And then you have those, we call them campaign fires, where it might go for several days, which we had. The last big one I remember being involved in was at Yonkers. It burnt for, I think, on about the 7th day. Eventually the fire was kind of contained. And that was a big lesson for everybody, because it started off on a day, on a Sunday morning, when there was no wind. And I don't want to get into all the other reasons, but we were out there for a couple of hours and it was just about done, but we were the only asset there. Despite calling for more assets to come and help us, it didn't come till too late, and then the wind got up and the rest is history. I don't know how many thousands of hectares were burned, but essentially the whole of the Yonkers Valley got burnt out. There was homes burnt, there was all kinds of dramas with this thing. And sadly, having seen this many times before, you kind of wonder. We're always there to help, but we're trying to prevent these things. So the whole point of an initial attack is, the moment they see something, when the conditions are conducive to the spread of fire, if you see smoke, just call the helicopters. Okay. So the typical day will be that you're waiting for a call to go out. We're ready to go at a moment's notice, and you just sit and wait. And that, you could say, would be one of the downsides of it. So it's kind of frustrating when you spend, which happened to me the other day, you spend 2 weeks on standby and nothing happens. The first day you go a day off, airplane flies. That's the luck of the draw. It's not about flying every day, but we like to fly. So for me, I've done a lot of these things, and we're still training some new guys to come into the thing, and they also need a chance to go and fly. So it's the luck of the draw.
So Tosh, that's all fascinating, and I've certainly had my eyes opened about things that I don't know about firefighting. So thank you very much for that. Just to wrap it up, you mentioned that there are occasions when the fire is really raging, it's going up a valley. There must have been some heart-wrenching moments and very tragic moments that you've gone through, and have some that are better than that. Anything that comes to mind straight away?
Yeah, over the years we've seen some big fires in our time, and there have been some deaths that have occurred over the years. And I've seen some really sad things where people get caught in vehicles. People on the fire line who they're trying to help, and especially on these narrow forest roads. This was in the early days. There was not as good communications as we have in this day and age, and they couldn't turn the vehicle around time, and eventually the people get caught, and there have been casualties. So we're trying to keep this as safe as possible. We've had in the Western Cape, we've seen many houses get burnt, and their entire livelihoods go up in smoke, and there's only so much that you can do. Again, prevention is better than the cure. So for us, it's all about the timely call out to get going there. But there's certain times when you cannot do anything. You either can't get in there because of the smoke, or for a various number of reasons. So it is tragic to see that. One of the things that I've also maintained with the firefighting is that I've found that it's impossible to quantify the stuff that didn't get burnt. In other words, when you get to a fire and you put things out, it's kind of easy to make an estimate. But when I've seen some of the bigger fires, from what they started with a small manageable thing, and how big it got, if that thing had been put out, it would be simple. It's another small fire, just another day, 1 hour's flight, or whatever. It's going to be a few loads, and the fire's out. which became a massive fire. So when you put the small fires out, how do you quantify what may have been lost? And that's one of the things that, we're trying to make an awareness of this thing. And, the more examples you have, the better. But you don't want to lose, people lose their houses and livelihoods, especially in the Western Cape, because there's a lot of people. I think the population's definitely increased, moving out from the urban areas, going further and further out. So where there's people, there is, again, a chance of fires. People burn things. It could be a cigarette butt on the side, or it could be power lines that are arcing. It can be, there's a whole number of different ignition sources that we have.
I guess there have been equally some highly rewarding moments where you may have been able to save someone or a house or something like that.
Indeed, yeah, that's the other side of the coin. And that, going back to what I said earlier about one of the reasons we do this job, is that immense satisfaction. And we see it more here in the Western Cape with the people. I mean, I remember landing sometimes at fires, and people come out with this tray of these ice cold Cokes, and you're just landing to put in fuel, and you're actually trying to go and take a pee somewhere. They're coming. These people, they're so grateful, and it's humbling to see that. And when you're thirsty, ice cold Coke goes a long way. But it's exciting to do that kind of thing, and that's what makes you come back and do it again. And to see that look in people's eyes when you've actually saved some of their stuff. Not because you have to, it's because you want to. It's the job that we do. And yeah, I suppose you kind of play it down a bit, but it's got to be, as I said earlier, some of the most rewarding stuff that I've done, because you're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with, you're a cog in this big machine, and when it all works together, it's incredible to see it happen. And the people that you work with, even with the flying, for us, we've got a small team here, and we've got a couple of Hueys, and all of us fly all the machines. So might be on the Hawk one day, and next day on the Hueys, and they all have a role to play, and they all have their own idiosyncrasies. But for me, the Hawk is a great tool. I mean, it's a 2,500 liter bucket. It's a really, really effective weapon, and the Hueys they're just as good. It's nearly 1,000 liters at a time, and the quicker you can do it, the quicker you get the water in the fire, the quicker you can sort the problem out. I mean, that is a real generalization. I mean, there's more to it than that, and we spoke about things like the threats and fatigue, and you need to drink a lot of water. You'd be surprised that the adrenaline gets to you, and you forget, you become dehydrated. So we continually try to drink water like everyone else does. We're not unique in all the things that we do. We have learned some lessons over the years on how to, be prepared, and how to try and do things to the best of our ability.
Tosh, that's incredible. Thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure, Terry.
We look forward to the next episode, which will be an episode on some of the inherent threats with firefighting, and what you guys as a incredibly good company, leading edge, do to mitigate those threats and to try and make the operation as safe as possible within a very hostile environment. Thanks, Tosh. See you soon.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for the time.